Question 1. Conventions of an opening. The plot. As an opening, our film's plot is reasonably conventional. Two establishing shots are used to set the scene, and the music is used too. This sets a mood for the film at the very start, allowing the audience to make their opinions fairly quickly. In our case, we don't immediately show any horrific images, but the music connotes horror. Our opening reveals the general theme of the film without trying to cover it up in any way. Our film titles are also rather conventional of the flow and mise-en-scène of the openings. They abide by the rule of thirds and feature every few shots, therefore focusing attention more on the visuals rather than the text. The typography is supposed to represent the theme of the film, and I think we did this with the Gorty de Sans light, which is subtle but also has sinister, slightly gothic undertones to go with it. They all contrast with the background, an example being if there is a dark background or an area with low-key lighting, the titles would be white to stand out from this. Conventional of film openings, we introduced two of the main characters briefly in the first minute. We also showed a small overview/summary of the situation in an enticing way. Dialogue is used but not too much. This helps the viewer construct a slightly more informed view of the character and their personality, not quite to the extent that Tarantino does in his signature dialogue sequences, like Pulp Fiction, but to a small degree at least. The things in our film that create enigma are the newspaper wall, the fast cutting rate, the montage of the newspaper, the darkness of the basement, the young victims, his relationship with the female, the harsh conditions and array of props, the meat, and the relationship with the couples and their past experiences. Our film is set in a domestic middle-class household. The kitchen we chose conformed to the stock kitchen location we often see in horror films, like The Ring and Our Production 2. This is done to bring home the fact that nowhere is safe. Home environments are seen by viewers as safe zones, much like the policeman would be seen as a safe character. When this is invaded or the inhabitants change, or die in the policeman's case, the audience can be left feeling vulnerable and open to be scared. Our main character is not visually conventional due to his age, but the concept and his character are. We often see in psychological films the dark side to seemingly normal characters, a prime example being The Lovely Bones. In this we see a man who also kidnaps children under the nose of society and even his neighbour. This, and making the character look as regular and white-collar as possible, are done to create unease and to make the audience feel this story could really occur. We included a lot of close-ups when filming, and this was to create intensity. Being more of a psychological horror, it was apparent to us that the close-ups were signifiers for the crazed mind of a killer. In our case, it was the wife in the kitchen scene. We see the low-angle pan in both The Ring and in our opening. However, we purely used it as a method of ensuring continuity, whereas in The Ring, we see a puddle at the base of the floor, creating anticipation of what's on the other side. We implemented the titles so they didn't detract from the visuals, but are still contrasting from the background. This was an idea we got from Seven. We also added a movement effect and a fade which seemed to be common among openings to make it feel that bit more professional. For example, in Seven, overlapping and jittering of text is used. The sound is pretty conventional, not just the psychological subgenre, but also of the horror genre in general. The piano music featured in the kitchen reveals to the audience as soon as they start watching it. Create a certain atmosphere and mood, making the audience feel uneasy right from the start of the film. The non-diegetic sound in the basement is an ambient sound we found on Freesound, which anchored our visuals well as it's quiet, creepy, ambient, creates tension and keeps the audience guessing what other horrors lie within the basement. Psychological horrors tend to have interesting sound mixes, and ours can't be labelled conventional or unconventional of the subgenre. 2. Going through the social groups that appear in our production, firstly there was a white middle-class male played by Rob. The male is a white-collar city worker. The female is a housewife who is shown to be cooking for her husband. The victims are all teens, white and of different sexes, a white middle-class female, and both are young. Although the male is represented as the breadwinner of the couple, they are both represented equally by the end, as we see them as accomplices more than anything. This is a positive representation of women, excluding the Sweeney Todd-like circumstances of the observation. The fact the lead is neither black nor female could be construed as recessive, however this is purely down to the limited options available to us. In a production with a budget for actors, we may have found a different lead, and so I don't think we can comment on the race of the lead actor. The female victim is shown to have her face stroked and her cheek pinched. The idea is that he is testing the meat, however, as she is a young girl and he is an unhinged male who has tied her up, it's also a slightly sexual degrading act. This is a negative recessive ideology that women are objects for some men, however this is the intended effect here and is done to get a reaction of disgust from the audience. We created the binary oppositions of the victims and the husband predominantly through mise-en-scène. The props the victims were captured in were reasonably sinister and animalistic, giving the sense that in this situation the antagonist is their owner/captor. Sound helped distinguish the character roles through dialogue, such as "Hun, good day," and Pete asked if you want to play golf. Golf is a middle-class sport and it enforces her housewife status, as she was at home to answer the phone. The lack of sound helped enforce the false ideology of young people as being weaker-willed in the modern age. The fact that we heard zero dialogue and no resistance or fighting back from them portrays them as mere objects in the hand of a murderous psychopath. Question 3. Momentum Pictures are an independent UK distributor who I think would suit distributing our film due to the wide range of genres they produce, one of which is horror. This includes Let the Right One In, a critically acclaimed film, and House at the End of the Street. Our film is more similar to the latter of those two, being set in a domestic environment and featuring a basement, and a protagonist could be introduced after the introduction, possibly similar to the character Jennifer Lawrence plays in House at the End of the Street. Although I can imagine our film being produced as a mainstream industrial piece of cinema, I believe it would be more suited to an independent production with a more unique take on the situation our film denotes. Rather than the predictable take, which would be to follow a protagonist possibly fighting to uncover or escape this couple, presented as the antagonists, I'd instead prefer the story to be focused around these two and following them as the evil yet likeable protagonists, much like the couple in Sightseers, creating a film for a more niche audience. The nature of our film means the budget for it could be very low with unknown actors playing the leads, as I would want the audience's opinion of the characters to be based solely on the events of the film, not on any previous pieces. There would also be a large amount of character development of the couple. Firstly, I think that a feature in the respected film magazines such as Empire or Little White Lies magazine to appeal to the core target audience of 15 to 23 and to people who are possibly blog and have a deeper interest in films. Seeing as Momentum Pictures aren't one of the big 6 studios, they don't have the same subsidiaries available to them to market the film via synergistic promotional methods. Therefore, symbiotic promotional methods are how our film should be marketed. For the P&A side of our campaign, we could use mosaic profiling to put up posters in specific parts of London to appeal to the target audience of young adults of the water cooler nature. A large part of the campaign would utilise the Web 2.0 by using social media and possibly a website. By doing this, we can create a buzz around this film and target positive technological determinants, all with little or no costs attached. Although this film may be targeted at a slightly specific art house audience with showings in cinemas such as Curzon, I think that the film could, given the context, be exhibited in mainstream cinemas such as Odeon. These multiplex features, however, would probably be few and far between, as they may not have viewing space for a small budget film like this. Although a simultaneous release may create a media buzz like with The Field in England, where the film was released on all platforms at the same time, including DVD, in cinema, and on video on demand, the novelty may have worn off for audiences and it may cause a flop. The alternative, however, would be just as risky, as a standard release wouldn't make the film stand out in any way, and so it may be lost among the bigger Hollywood productions. A standard release would mean Momentum Pictures would show our film in the cinemas first, then it would be released on DVD and Blu-ray, and finally online to video-on-demand services such as Netflix. These video-on-demand services would be crucial to the film's success, as films, not in Netflix's case, can sometimes get paid for the amount of viewings they get on the video-on-demand site. This means that only people who want to see the film will actively search it out and watch it, meaning that there is no wasted marketing costs of advertising to people who are never going to watch it. Curzon supplies one of these pay-to-play services. Question 6. Posting on the blog was a very helpful source of communicating with the group and sharing our ideas and opinions. It allowed each person in the group to collaborate in the planning and leading up to the lessons, meaning that we could come into the planning lessons with a selection of ideas to contribute to the team. Often in blog posts we embedded pictures and videos to visually illustrate our points and provide a reference point to refer to when reading and writing the post. We posted 3 videos on YouTube. One was the rough cut and the other 2 were finished versions, however one of them was a more stabilized version. The videos being on YouTube provided a great reference point for us when writing the blog posts, and it helped us produce the written pieces more efficiently due to the ease of tabbing to the video quickly. This is the kit list, which involved the main tripod, the mini tripod, the LED lights, the DSLR camera, and the skateboard as the track. One of the major problems that we had when filming was lighting. During the shoot we realised that in each room there was only one light bulb, usually positioned above the door frame. Therefore, filming a shot into a room became problematic, as the camera and cameraman always cast a very visible shadow into the frame. We fixed this by standing further back and positioning the camera behind the door frame, looking into the room, or by filming towards the doorway in the room. A further problem was that we looked over the footage the week after. A lot of the shots in the basement were far too dark to put on the editing timeline. Therefore, we turned the brightness up on some of the shots using the brightness and contrast tool on the Adobe Premiere, which made it slightly grainy but not noticeable if you had ever seen it before and after. When filming, we used sprays. This was very helpful for some shots where we couldn't position the large tripod, such as the shot to the right, in which the camera has been placed a few inches above the counter, a length that the large tripod could not de-extend down to. The small tripod could do this because its legs were bendable and could be adjusted to small heights to perform unusual shots. It also acted as a makeshift Steadicam, which made certain shots slightly steadier than if we would have been holding it directly. During filming, we tried to pay attention to the rule of thirds as much as possible, applying it to the necessary shots, such as the shot where Rob enters the first room of the basement, giving it a more professional look. As we didn't have access to the track when filming, I had to borrow a skateboard off a friend and use that instead. We realised, however, that rolling this along the kitchen's floor would not be a viable shot opportunity, as the floor tiles caused the camera to shake. To combat this, we used Harry's desk from upstairs, a large piece of wood around 1.5 metres long. This provided a smoother surface for a tracking shot. The tripod often couldn't be adjusted to position the camera in the right place for certain shots. This caused us to have to go for a Handycam or a Steadicam shot instead. For example, the bird's eye view shot of the pan was very shaky when we looked at it post-filming.
Hi, honey. Work okay?
The new audio. Thankfully, the dub was lip-synced well, creation of the sound mix was one of the most lengthy processes of the production. The sound to the right is a collaboration of overlaid newspaper reports. The intended effect was to inform the audience with the fact that there have been a good number of children gone missing, and for questions to be raised as to why this is relevant, which is answered in the next scene. One of the techniques we used when editing to achieve continuity was cutting on action to create matched cuts. We did this throughout to clearly show the lead's movement through the house. An example of this is when he goes from the first room in the basement to the next. At first we didn't have anything in between the rooms, but after looking at it from a viewer's perspective, we added a low angle pan shot following his feet through the corridor. As he steps inside the second room, we cut to a high angle shot, which you can see on the right below. This provides the viewer with a clear, yet not tedious image of the basement and a clearer image of the set. I performed the editing of the title Flesh on Adobe Photoshop. First I chose a suitable font and then typed Flesh onto the Photoshop document. I then double-clicked the layer to bring up the layer title menu, in which I could customize the font to make it unique to our piece. The color overlay I chose was a light red, a colour most relatable to blood. Next I added a small outer glow of a dark red colour to emphasise the splatters of blood seen around the S and the H of the font and to give the title greater depth. Finally I finished it up with the help from Rory with the contour tool which gave another dimension to the font but not enough depth to make it look cartoonish.